Okay, so we're going to carry on with our dinosaur maze game, or in this case, it's actually a cat dino game. So what I've done is I've changed the title to make it appropriate. It's always good to give your work appropriate titles so that we can always come back. Well, we know exactly which file we want to open up. So the first thing I'm going to do, if I just very quickly test my game out, okay, that's going fairly well. However, one thing I'm not entirely happy with are the speeds. So we really do need to just get the speeds just correct. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply delay his little sort of second or very sort of small period of time where he's in the air. What that would mean is that he has more of a chance to dodge one of the trees. All I need to do is simply try and think about exactly what I want to change. And in this case, it was that little bit there where he's jumped up and before he comes back down. So I'm actually going to locate that here, which is a wait 0.1 second. And I'm going to just extend that a little bit. Let's try 0.4. So that's 4 times the amount of time where he is in the air. Okay, so that makes it a lot easier for someone to play my game. Okay, however, so if you guys do want to go ahead, you can pause my video and go and change that one little piece of code. And as we can see, it's a lot easier for someone to play the game. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to think about how we can edit some of our costumes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you two ways we could do this. One is I can simply just choose a completely different sprite. However, obviously, it's nice to have one which will look like it's running. So something like this may not be the most ideal. Otherwise, we may need to go ahead and edit some of our costumes. Let's see the dog. So the dog one will work. The dinosaur would work, but possibly we can get it to flip around the other side. Um, that dinosaur looks like he may work as well. That dinosaur possibly. Okay, this dinosaur possibly. Dragon, yep, good. Dot. So loads of them are looking good. We may want to get rid of that last costume there. Something like Dorian wouldn't entirely work. So we can just simply choose one that we like. What I'm going to do, because some of you guys have put cars into your game, so what we might want to do is think about how we can use a car. So I'm going to very quickly go into costumes, and what we can do, think about how we have these alloys. And all I'm going to very quickly do, some of them don't have these alloys, the alloys being the metal part of the wheel. Some of yours don't have alloys. What you can do is simply draw them on. However, what I'm going to do is select the two. In fact, I should actually have duplicated that first. I'm going to come here, select the two, and simply rotate that like so, and do the same at the front as well. So now how it should look is it should look as if it's rotating like so. So it's not really the most obvious because of the size of the wheels. But what we can also do, if I head back to the costumes, I might just add a quick little, let's just add a little puff coming out the exhaust. Okay, so now that I've got my second costume, or second sprite, this is the sprite I actually want to use. What I can do is I can simply just drag this over onto that costume, and where you do see that shake, if I let go, that little block of code would go ahead. Now this is something which is specific to Scratch, um, not necessarily all coding programs, but that's one way we can simply just transfer our code to another object. And now if we see, do you know what, let's bring that over a little bit. I want that to start here. So minus 146 and 63. So remember, it's always important to understand our coordinates. So equals 1 minus 146 minus 63. Now let's see how it works. Okay, so it is working pretty well at the moment. Okay, but obviously with the car being a bit longer in terms of the width, it will be a little bit more difficult. Okay, now a couple of you guys have had concerns around coordinates. So if I very quickly just show you how the coordinates are. So if I put this in the middle, not quite the middle, what I will do is if I change this to 0, 0, let's just hide everything else first. Okay, so 0, 0 is in the middle there. If I change my x, let's say, I'm going to change my x to 200. Okay, 200 is over there on that side. Minus 200 is on the other side. Okay, so we know that 0 is in the middle here. 200 is around here. 200 is on this side. Minus 200 is on this side. Let's bring that back to 0. And let's try 200 in terms of y. And that will be higher up at the top. And minus 200 will be at the bottom. So y is by this line here, where we can move our character across, or sprite across here, like so. And x is along the corridor or horizontally. And I just played around with 0 and 200. So if I wanted 200 and minus 200, so x 200, remember that was on this side, minus 200 in terms of y, it would be down here. Okay, and if I do put them the other way around, that will be like so. Okay, so it's always good to understand exactly how things work in terms of coordinates. And as you can see, my wheels are spinning around as well. So it does look like he's driving a little bit. Okay, now what we're going to do is let's bring, in fact, let's keep that hidden. Let's keep my car on show. We wanted him to go back to minus 158, minus 162. Okay, so as you can see, what I have been doing is I've been moving it around. And let's put my tree to show. 63, not minus 163. Okay, so that's working fairly well at the moment. Okay, so if you guys did want to do anything with your sprites, feel free to go ahead. Remember to try and bear in mind the coordinates and where you need to move that around. One thing I do need to change is my coding, but we'll come back to that. So if you want to pause the video, if you want to go ahead and change anything on your sprites, feel free to, and then pop back. Okay, so obviously, as you can see, that my code is not working. My game should be stopping at the moment, but it's not. So I'm going to head over to my trees, or my tree, and let's see exactly why is that not stopping. So some of you guys may have realized it's because it's not stopping, because it's not touching sprite 1. I will need to change that to my convertible 2. And the moment where it touches, it will stop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to edit my tree, and I'm going to simply duplicate. Let's duplicate that twice. And what I'm going to do is for my tree 2, I'll simply copy and paste. Okay, let's make sure we've got that in line. Okay, I'm going to do that again. That's in line as well. Might make one a little bit smaller. Okay, so you can have as many as you wish. But now what I have is I have 3 trees, and obviously the third tree is the biggest. Um, so what we can do is we can do as many of them as we wish. So if you guys want to pause the video, go ahead and do that. You're giving yourselves more than 1 tree. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to code our game so that we do have random trees coming in at different times. Okay, so what do we need to do? We're going to think about the code. At what point would I code my tree to change? Okay, so when my green flag is clicked, my tree will hide. It will go to one particular point in the game, which was on the right-hand side over here. And it will constantly create a clone of itself when wait 2 seconds and create another clone, wait 2 seconds, create another clone. Whenever a clone is made, okay, it will show, it will glide 2 seconds to this side of the screen, and once it's on that side of the screen, it will delete itself. And if it ever touches a convertible, everything will stop. We can play around with that later on, but we'll look at that later on. So what we're doing is, as soon as I start as a clone, show, glide. Now that over there somewhere is where we want to change it, change the tree. So what we're going to do is, obviously we're going to change the looks. We will simply say switch to costume, tree 3. Obviously we wanted to switch to a random costume. Now we've used operators before. In operators we do have pick random. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tell it to pick one of the costumes between trees 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to simply say from operators join tree and pick random 1, 2, and 3. Now the beauty of this is it does recognize this join tree, pick random 1, 2, and 3. However, we do need to make sure that our costumes have the relevant names. So if I went to costumes, they are all tree 1, tree 2, tree 3, not tree space 1, tree space 2, tree space 3. If that was the case, I will need to make sure I have put that in my code correctly. So that's something which is very easy for it to go wrong. We just need to make sure, but it's also very easy to fix. We just need to ensure that what we've written here, either tree 1, 2, or 3 with no spaces, matches the name of my costumes here. So you can always change it to sprite 1, 2, and 3, costume 1, 2, and 3, tree 1, 2, and 3. It's entirely up to you. So let's play the game now. Okay, so we started off with 1 tree. Oh, that wasn't too good. There we go. We've got 2 trees now. However, as we can see, we do need to make sure that we do stay in the air a little bit longer. So I may need to change that a little bit more, possibly from 0.4 to 0.6, for example. Okay, but it's all about testing and amending if you need to. So I've got 2 trees, 2 trees. Seems to, oh, there we go. We've got 3 trees there, 1 tree. Okay, so we can see it is constantly bringing me random sets of trees. Okay, so if you guys did want to go ahead and code that, what I did was I created my 3 trees and I did code my my tree. Let's go back to the code to switch to a random tree whenever it was starting as a clone. So if you want to pause the video and go ahead and do that, please. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a score. If you remember, we've added the scores in other games in the past. We want to think about exactly how we're going to incorporate the score. Now, if we do code the score to change for every tree he jumps over, that will be quite tricky to do. But we can do that. That's not a problem. But however, what we will do here is we're going to basically have a timer. So what we are going to do, we're going to create a new variable. Remember, we use variables for scores. Variable being something which can change throughout the game, or every time someone plays a game, and we can refer to that name of the variable. And we can always pull out the value that's inside it. We can always change the value that's inside it as well. So we're going to head over to variables. We're going to make a variable, and this variable we called score. This will be for all sprites. We're not going to head over to cloud variables just yet. And I'm going to code my score every time. Well, I'm going to base this on the time that the game is being played. I can base it on every tree which is jumped over. However, for now, what I will base it on simply is the time, because basing it on the trees that we jump over will be a little bit more difficult to code. We're going to keep it simple for now. So I've got my score. Remember, as soon as my game starts, I'm going to set my score to 0. And then every second which the game is played, my score would simply increase by 1. So I'm going to use a forever loop for now. Forever loop, let's head over to variables, and we want to change my score by 1. Now if I do that, what would happen, that is a little bit too fast, so we do want to head over to control and wait 1 second. So now what we have is, as soon as my game starts, we're going to head over to the starting point, set the score to 0, and constantly add 1 to the score every second. There we go, reset to 0, and I can see my score is increasing. And I also want to ensure that it stops as soon as I hit a tree. There we go, so that stopped perfectly. Okay, so that's working very well. Okay, so if you guys want to head over and set or create your score variable and code that. Now what we're also going to do is we're going to code something called trees. Sorry, not trees, called lives. So what we will do is we're going to create another variable. We can create this on the tree or on the convertible. Let's do it on the convertible. And I'm going to make a variable and call this lives. And as soon as my game starts, so let's head over. In fact, what we can do is we don't need another block. We can just say, as soon as my score is set to 0, we can also set my lives to 3. And whenever my tree hits the convertible, instead of getting the tree to stop all, what we're going to do is simply change lives by -1. Okay, and then what we can also do is we can get it to wait a second as well. Okay, just so that we do not get everything down straight away. Okay, but obviously now what we can see is there is no end to the game. So what we will do is we'll simply come back to the convertible. We'll get the timer to stop. So we're going to actually remove that forever, and we are going to replace it with a repeat until, and we want it to repeat until the lives equals 0. Okay, so we're going to head back to operators, and we're going to use our lives repeat until lives equals 0. That's when our timer stops, and then we can also use a stop all there. Now what we can do is we can replace that stop all with a hide. We can get our character to change as well. There's loads of stuff we can do, but that's all we will be doing for now. Okay, so if you guys want to head over and incorporate your lives as well, remember what I've done is I've added my lives as a new variable, set my lives to 3 lives at the beginning of the game, and whenever my tree touches a live, when the tree touches a car, we lose a life as well. We can incorporate the high score as well, but that's something we will worry about later on. Okay, and for some reason, this is still going on. So let's see why that's the case. Forever if touching. Repeat until lives equals 0. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm simply going to find, not exactly sure why that's not working. So all I'm going to do is say when my green flag is clicked, and I'm going to say to wait until lives equals 0. Which when it does equal 0, at that point we're going to hide and stop all as well. And remember, if we do get it to hide, we also need to get it to show at the beginning of the game as well. Let's try that now. Okay, so we'd always have problems when we're coding. It's always that we just need to find out what the problem is and fix it. There we go. So that's working well. So boys, if you want to do that and just get your work over to me as well, feel free to let me know if you have any issues.